I've only had less than 10 audio encounters with a spirit, and they really, really scared me. I'm not gonna lie. Every time I heard a disembodied voice, I had a panic attack. It was scary. It was beyond my comprehension. But the one that stood out the most was the first one I ever had as a child. Hello everyone, I'm Smoky Spirit. Let us begin. See, as a child, I woke up in the witching hour. That's 3 a.m. The reason I woke up was because it sounded like there was a whole bunch of people in my room, having different kinds of conversations. Some of them were whispers, some of them were yells, some of them were family members, some of them was people that I only met once in my life. And it was so loud. So obviously I woke up and I saw nobody was there. And I was not dreaming. And I obviously always slept with the light on. But because the light was on, I could 100% see that there was no one else in the room. But the voices continued. There were so many. I couldn't even hear myself breathe. It was so loud. And it was as if the voices were trying to figure out which one I trusted. Because I treat everyone exactly the same. It is how I was raised. So whatever was making those voices was trying to figure out who I trusted the most. This obviously freaked me out. So I covered my ears. Because it was so noisy, it was so loud, it was so scary. Then something weird happened when my ears were covered. The voices were muffled, as if I was in a crowd covering my ears. It became harder to hear, like I couldn't even hear the whispers. The loud yelling voices were muffled, the talking voices were muffled. And I got even more scared. Because this meant that I definitely wasn't dreaming. I was wide awake. And these voices were just having conversations with people's voices that I happened to recognize. And then I heard a voice that I recognized because it seemed familiar. But it seemed like a distant relative that I probably only heard ever speak once. So it wasn't as familiar as it felt. It told me to calm down and everything it was going to be okay. So obviously that caught my attention because it sounded clear, even though the voices were external. This one was clear. So I moved my hands off my ears. And then I listened to that voice. You're not supposed to be able to hear. They're going to try to trick you. What? Was I not supposed to hear these voices? Is it because these voices are in my head, but why did they get muffled when I closed my ears? Why are they trying to trick me? Then the voices try to use my family member, my mom, my dad, my sister's voice against me. And then they hear the other voice again. You're not supposed to hear. They are trying to trick you. Okay. Probably a different kind of spirit. Maybe a different kind. Because usually I see them. I've never heard them before, but I heard apparently you could hear spirits. So I didn't look too much into it. And then I needed a hearing aid. And then suddenly the ear that needed a hearing aid could not pick up the audio. And then what I did was I looked up different kinds of spirits that are related to audio. There are actually a lot of beliefs of different kinds of spiritual beings mimicking loved ones, giving people warnings externally. In fact, this is a phenomena that's often seen with people that have both mental illness and not mental illness, people that are spiritual and not spiritual. It happens a lot more than one might realize. Hearing voices in a spiritual context. If there is a voice, there must be a speaker. And up until the 19th century, spiritual experiences were considered as part of reality, whereas today it would be considered as hallucinations, a sign of a mental disorder, despite there being cases where no mental disorder is found. These religious and spiritual hallucinations are common and are associated with everything from religion to death. Both believers and non-believers experience this phenomenon. An interpretation of these events varies in many ways, including spiritual, non-spiritual. It's all based on the hearer's perception. They also have both positive and negative effects on the listener. Interestingly, spiritual voice is often believed to be external, and the hearer senses the presence that physically affects the listener, such as making them feel drained, paralyzed, or ill, or in my case, would scare me into having panic attacks. With many people looking towards their faiths, religions, and spirituality for answers, some people have also encountered disembodied voices that sound like dead or living loved ones. Islam has a brilliant example of this type of demon, or rather a jinn, called a hatif. The hatif is known to cry out news at night, give warnings, advice, directions, mimic the voices of loved ones, and they are heard but not seen. Alright, so disembodied voices apparently is quite normal. And mimicking spirits are normal too. They mimic footsteps of loved ones. They mimic sound. So many spirits mimic. There are even modern day encounters. And there are biblical encounters. There are historical encounters and different cultural beliefs. All regarding this. And because plasma shows possibility of evolution and vibrate and reproduce. So what if these voices are actually external vibrations produced by unseen plasma beings mimicking the frequency, tone and vibrations it has come in contact with? I believe that if plasma has been proven to be able to vibrate in order to communicate and show potential to evolve, that shows potential for learned behavior. Spirits are known to show a range of intellectual and emotional intelligence. This opens up the possibility of spirits growing and coming up with their own beliefs, as seen in many faiths where spirits show individuality and intellect. This also opens up possibility of plasma beings learning and mimicking traits and behaviors seen in human nature. This could explain why some spirits take on the persona, presence, or voice of loved ones. In fact, there are countless stories of first-hand accounts of spiritual beings mimicking sounds and behaviors of both the living and the dead. Nikola Tesla once said, "If you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration." Nikola was able to rediscover lost knowledge and what would later lead to the study of the plasma state and its properties. Sound is congressional wave of gas, liquid, solid, or plasma, with there being two basic types of waves, transverse and longitudinal. There are transverse waves created by electromagnetic sources, such as light and radio waves. Sound moves through mediums, like air, as longitudinal waves, which causes vibration or oscillations periodically, like electromagnetic waves. They also have wavelengths and frequencies. However, in the case of sound, the perception is auditory in nature and not visible. Our ears hear a certain range of these auditory frequencies or vibrations. Vibrations from the air are transmitted to the ear. Sound replication and mimicry has always been part of nature. In a predator-prey relationship, sounds and vibrations are mimicked for survival, and even some people are able to replicate sounds in the form of entertainment. With technological achievements, sounds are sent across great distances through various waves, such as radio waves, to our devices. Disembodied sounds don't just come from surroundings or minds, but technology too. EMF detectors, also known as spirit boxes or ghost boxes, are used during paranormal investigations to measure the energy changes in the environment. Electronic voice phenomenon is found in static or background recordings and are often believed to be the voices of spirits or auditory form of pareidolia. Mimicry is normal in nature for both survival and entertainment. Even if the source of the sound is unidentified, many people end up encountering disembodied auditory phenomena. However, it's always wise to have yourself checked for undiagnosed health issues. If multiple people have heard disembodied sounds or encountered the presence, you're probably living with a spirit. Remember, not all spirits are good or evil. Not all encounters are made by demons. In my first ever encounter, I received a warning. It told me that it was a trick. In every late encounter, I remember the warning, and in my case, I took this as a spiritual encounter. Today, however, I would have myself checked out because of my health issues.